Welcome, truth seekers, to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a close look at a really striking instruction from Jesus. It's one that kind of shapes every conversation we have. It's basically a call to honest speech in all things, and it challenges how we typically think about reliability and, well, our own words.
Indeed. And we'll be drawing from John Piper's insights today, specifically from his book, All That Jesus Commanded. We're focusing on his reflections on the command, do not take an oath, cherish the truth, and speak it simply. Piper, as you probably know, is a leading contemporary theologian, and his work often pushes us to rethink common assumptions about Christian living.
Absolutely. So our mission for this deep dive is to really unpack why Jesus gave this instruction to avoid oaths. What does it actually mean for our daily speech? And how does it reveal just how central truth is in God's eyes? You might find by the end of this that your plain yes or no gains entirely new weight. So let's just jump right into it. Jesus delivers this striking instruction in Matthew chapter 5, verses 33 through 37. Now, this is part of the Sermon on the Mount, right, where Jesus often takes Old Testament laws and teachings and, well, he raises the standard. He calls his followers to a higher form of righteousness. And here he goes beyond the previous understandings of promises and sworn statements. He sets a whole new direction.
That's a really crucial distinction to make right at the start. The older instruction, which you find scattered in the Old Testament, was mainly about not swearing falsely and also ensuring that you actually fulfilled what you had sworn to the Lord. It was about regulating oaths.
Okay, so managing them.
Exactly. Managing their proper performance within, a legal and moral framework. It acknowledged oaths as legitimate, though obviously serious. They were used to confirm testimonies, seal covenants, things like that. But Jesus' instruction, it's a complete paradigm shift, a total change. He moves from just regulation to outright prohibition. He says it so clearly, but I say to you, do not take an oath at all.
Wow, no ambiguity there.
None. This isn't some minor adjustment. It's a foundational redirection for God's people, urging them toward an entirely different standard of verbal honesty. And the command is, as you said, explicit. Very little room for wiggling out of it. Jesus says avoid any oath, whether it's by heaven, by the earth, by Jerusalem, or even by your head.
Yeah.
He lists these specific examples because they were the common ways people spoke back then. They were the cultural habits.
Right, the go-to phrases.
Yeah. People would often invoke these things, maybe thinking it was a kind of lesser oath. Perhaps it felt like it made their promise stronger without directly using God's sacred name.
Hoping to avoid the biggest consequences if they broke their word.
That seems to be the underlying thought, but Jesus just demolishes that idea. He reveals that these objects aren't separate from God's domain at all, he explains. Heaven, that's God's throne. The earth, that's his footstool. Jerusalem, his city. And even the hair on your head, which you can't change the color of yourself, that changes only by his guiding hand.
So every oath, no matter what you swear by,
Implicitly appeals to God's authority and his involvement in everything. There are no safe zones outside his rule. It's all his. So instead of these oaths, Jesus gives a very clear, very fundamental instruction for our speech. He says, let what you say be simply yes or no. That's the core of it. Super simple.
Just yes or no.
Just yes or no. But then he adds this clarification that is frankly startling. It should really make us stop and think. He says, anything more than this comes from evil.
Comes from evil. That's strong language.
Incredibly strong. Think about what that implies. The very need for extra assurances, for declarations beyond a simple yes or no, points to a problem. It suggests a world where words themselves are suspect, where trust isn't the default setting.
Which, sadly, sounds a lot like our world.
It does. It's a striking indictment of how fallen human communication has become. Imagine like a business deal where just a handshake and a simple yes was all you needed. No contracts, no lawyers.
Hard to picture sometimes.
Right. Jesus is saying that the world we live in, the one filled with contracts, disclaimers, endless legal language just to bind people to their word, well, it operates under a shadow of mistrust. And that mistrust ultimately has its roots in evil. So this instruction, this command, it really has two main aims, as Piper points out. First, it's designed to stop people from using verbal evasions to get out of keeping their promises.
Cutting out the loopholes.
Exactly. It cuts off all those pathways people might try to use to wiggle out, to claim they didn't really mean it because they swore by the wrong thing or whatever. Jesus' command removes the excuses. Second, and this aim is, I think, even more profound, it's meant to cultivate such genuine honesty in his followers that any need for oaths just becomes, well, unnecessary.
So our character should be enough?
Precisely. Picture a community or a family or a friendship where a person's simple yes or no is just accepted. It's their bond. Their word is their truth. That's the challenging standard Jesus holds out. It's a call to such purity and consistency in speech that these extra declarations aren't needed anymore to build trust. Our character should speak louder than any oath we could possibly take.
That makes so much sense. It really is revolutionary, isn't it, and countercultural.
Yeah.
But it clearly stems from this view of truth that's just central to Jesus' thinking. So to really grasp the force of this command, we probably need to dig into how Jesus views truth itself. It's not just like a nice idea.
That's a vital point, absolutely vital. The scriptures, again and again, reveal that truth is precious, way beyond what we can fully grasp sometimes, both practically for our daily lives and spiritually in our connection to God, the Creator. It's not some abstract thing to be debated away in, university lounges. It's tangible, essential, foundational to reality. Just think about how, for most people, their very existence relies on truth every single day. The reliability of information isn't a minor detail. It's the absolute basis for how we interact, for our safety, for society to even function.
We make so many assumptions based on trust.
Countless assumptions every day. That things are as they appear, that the information we get is accurate. Our lives are literally built on it. Let's think about some critical situations where truth is genuinely life or death, or at least impacts well-being in a huge way. Imagine a parent rushing a child to the ER. The doctor needs to know with certainty, did the baby swallow that missing needle? Yes or no?
No room for ambiguity there.
None. Or is the water you're about to drink safe? Is that person approaching you actually a friend or someone with bad intentions? When you get on a plane, you trust the pilots have accurate info about fuel, right? About the destination.
You have to.
You have to. When you have surgery, you believe the team knows your condition, knows the procedure. You expect to get better, not worse. Did that desperate 911 caller say 11th Avenue or 11th Street? Getting that wrong could mean someone dies.
Wow, yeah.
In every single one of these cases, the correct, factual, truthful information is absolutely vital. Wrong information leads to disaster, lost lives, broken trust, terrible harm. And this reliance on truth goes right to the core of human relationships, too. Think about marriage vows. You trust those promises to love and cherish will be honored, that they weren't just made for, money or status.
Right, the foundation of the relationship.
Exactly. Without truthfulness in those deep, intimate connections, genuine relationship just can't exist. It crumbles. It's not just the big vows either. It's the steady flow of sincerity, of reliability day to day that holds people together. It builds intimacy, security. Even just the basic running of society depends completely on accurate information. Like that 911 call example shows, hearing and relaying vital info correctly can literally be the difference between life and death. So for the vast majority of humanity, truth absolutely matters. And it matters ultimately. Our survival, our peace, the very fabric of our communities rests on it.
It's fascinating how practical it is. Our lives are just woven with the need for truth, even if we don't always think about it that way. But what about those folks who maybe theoretically dismiss objective truth? You hear that sometimes truth is relative. How does Jesus' perspective cut through that?
That's a really insightful question because it highlights something crucial. Even people who publicly dismiss objective truth often show, through their actions, that they actually recognize its value when it affects them personally.
Their actions betray their words, you mean?
Pretty much, yeah. Piper uses this compelling example of the relativistic professor. You can picture it. University lecture hall. Professors confidently talking about how reality is subjective, truth is just a social construct, it varies,
Yeah, I've heard that kind of talk.
Right. But then, later that week, their electricity bill comes, and there's an extra zero on it. Or maybe their paycheck is wrong. Suddenly, all that abstract relativism just vanishes. Poof.
Huh. Suddenly truth is very objective.
Oh, absolutely. Objective truth isn't just desirable then, it's demanded. They'll complain about the error. They wouldn't find it funny if the company said, well, that's our truth about your bill, not yours.
No, they certainly wouldn't.
It reveals that for all the academic theories, when truth hits their wallet or their comfort or their convenience, suddenly it's very real and very necessary. So this leads us to think about why some people seem to disregard truth, at least publicly. Often those who do, maybe certain powerful leaders or figures with academic security, they can do it because their position shields them from the immediate real-world consequences of their views.
They're insulated from the fallout.
In a way, yes. A dictator might not care about truth because they have the power to impose their own version of reality, at least for a while, through force or propaganda. Some academics might play intellectual games in the classroom, but they don't have to live out those ideas when they go home. They're protected. But for most people, for everyday folks just trying to navigate life, truth matters intensely. It's pressing. It's real. And Jesus himself, he demonstrates this profound love for truth, this clear aversion to all kinds of falsehood throughout his entire life and ministry. His whole existence was basically a living demonstration of truth. He's the ultimate example for us. He explicitly confirmed the 9th commandment, right? Do not bear false witness. That wasn't just a nod. It was affirming a standard God had set long ago. He also warned that deceit starts in the heart. It corrupts a person from the inside out.
So it's not just about the words themselves.
No, it reveals something deeper about the inner spiritual state of the speaker. And Jesus viewed religious hypocrisy as a particularly serious form of lying, people using piety, religious acts, outward shows of faith to cover up evil or selfishness. In his eyes, they were acting like sons of the devil.
That's incredibly strong language again.
It is. It links that religious pretense directly to Satan, showing the spiritual danger of that kind of duplicity. Remember his encounter with Pontius Pilate. Jesus declares his whole reason for being born, for coming into the world, was to bear witness to the truth. He says, everyone who is of the truth listens to his voice. That was his mission, unveil truth, embody truth.
And Pilate famously asks, what is truth? But doesn't wait for an answer.
Right. He missed the answer standing right there in front of him, the embodiment of truth itself. And most strikingly, Jesus goes even further. He says, I am the truth.
Not just that he speaks truth, but that he is truth.
Exactly. He is the standard, the benchmark for what's real, right? Good, beautiful. He contains zero error, zero falsehood in his being. He sought only the glory of the Father who sent him, and in him there's no falsehood at all. So when people didn't believe him, Jesus didn't blame the truth itself. He pointed to the unbelieving heart. He said people turn away from the light, not because they think the light is false, but because they love darkness. The problem is with the receiver, the human heart's disposition.
That shifts the responsibility, doesn't it?
It does. The truth stands firm. It's our response to it that's in question. And then, before he left Earth, before ascending, Jesus promised to send a helper. And he called this helper the Spirit of Truth.
The Holy
Spirit. Not just a comforter, but a guide who leads believers into all truth. The Spirit's work includes testifying about Jesus, confirming his claims, his identity as truth, helping believers grasp who Christ really is. And the Spirit helps us not just know truth, but be molded by it, making it effective in our lives for spiritual growth. Jesus actually prayed for this. He prayed that believers would be sanctified, set apart, made holy by truth. And he stated plainly, your word is truth.
So truth has an active role in making us holy.
Absolutely. It's a dynamic process. Truth isn't just information. It's the means by which God transforms us to align with his character and purposes.
Okay, this paints a picture of truth as incredibly vital, foundational to God, to reality, to our own spiritual lives. So why? Why did people, even religious leaders back then, put so much effort into trying to get around it? What does that tell us about ourselves when we try to create loopholes for our words? It seems like such a human thing to do.
That's a really penetrating question, and it takes us right to the heart of these human tactics for, well, sidestepping honesty, tactics Jesus confronted directly, seeing them as coming from a dark source, from evil. It really reveals a basic misunderstanding, not just of truth, but of God's relationship to his creation and his creatures. Piper points to some common, almost childlike ways people try to manipulate promises. Things many of us might even remember doing.
Like crossing your fingers.
Exactly. Crossing your fingers behind your back when you make a promise. Or maybe the more dramatic, cross my heart and hope to die.
Yeah, I remember those.
They seem innocent, maybe, but they reflect this inherent human tendency, even when we're young, to find ways to escape keeping our word. Or sometimes it's about trying to reinforce words that maybe even the speaker instinctively feels aren't quite trustworthy on their own.
The need for the gesture shows a lack of confidence in the word itself.
Right. The simple word doesn't feel like enough. Now, in Jesus' day, this tendency showed up in more sophisticated, even religious-sounding forms. A common approach was using oaths that deliberately avoided naming God directly, creating these, you could call them, technical evasions. These weren't just casual remarks. They were meant to be binding declarations, but with a kind of built-in escape clause. They operated under what Piper calls a very devious logic. People would swear by heaven or by earth, by Jerusalem, by my head. Their twisted reasoning went something like this. If God's name wasn't explicitly mentioned, then the oath wasn't really binding in a divine sense.
Ah, the loophole logic again.
Exactly. They thought, well, heaven and earth and Jerusalem in my head can't actually punish me if I break my word. Only God can do that.
Mm-hmm.
So they convinced themselves they weren't really in trouble if they broke these kinds of oaths.
Trying to manipulate the rules.
Trying to game the system, yeah. Creating a way to be dishonest while keeping up a facade of piety. But Jesus just completely rejected this whole line of reasoning. He dismantled it. He explained, as we mentioned, everything you swear by is intrinsically connected to God. Heaven is his throne, earth his footstool, Jerusalem his city, your hair is creation. So any oath, no matter what external thing you invoke, implicitly calls upon God's authority anyway. You can't escape his oversight.
There's no getting around him.
No getting around him. His presence, his authority covers everything. And the underlying flaw in this whole practice is showed a really small, constricted view of God and truth. It suggested truth was insignificant, something you could manipulate with clever word games. And it suggested God wasn't really concerned with honesty unless you used his name in just the right specific way.
Making God seem kind of distant or legalistic.
Right. And Jesus counters that forcefully. He basically says, no, truth is precious beyond your wildest imagination, and God is behind every single molecule in the universe, and he is always concerned that his creatures be truthful. This correction reveals a much deeper understanding of God's omnipresence, his detailed care for creation, and his constant concern for moral integrity.
So if that kind of evasion by invoking lesser things was bad, it sounds like the Pharisees managed to make it even worse. What was their specific system?
You are absolutely right. Beyond those general evasions, Jesus saved some of his strongest language, his righteous fury, for the Pharisees, because they were teaching even more elaborate, more sophisticated methods of evasion. And this was particularly egregious because they were the religious leaders. They should have known better. It showed how far they'd strayed.
Okay, so what was their system?
It was complex and frankly overtly self-serving, designed purely to provide loopholes while making them look religiously smart. They actually taught that swearing by the temple meant nothing. It wasn't binding. But if you swore by the gold of the temple, that was binding. Seriously.
Seriously. And similarly, an oath by the altar was nothing, but an oath by the gift that is on the altar, that one counted.
That's just bizarre. It creates this totally artificial hierarchy.
Exactly. A bizarre artificial hierarchy of holiness. So you could make a promise, but if you hadn't invoked the binding element, the gold or the gift, you felt no moral or spiritual obligation to keep it. It was a legalistic trap built for dishonesty. And Jesus' rebuke, it was unmistakable, scathing. He called them blind guides and blind fools. Strong words.
Very strong.
He points out their fundamental error, their blindness. The gold's sacredness comes from the temple, and the gift's sacredness comes from the altar. The holiness isn't in the material thing itself. It originates entirely from their connection to God, his presence in the temple, his acceptance of the altar's offerings.
They were valuing the created thing over the creator. Precisely. They were valuing the gold or the gift over God himself, who made those things holy. They completely missed the source of all holiness and truth. And the deeper issue, Piper points out, was this desire to somehow make peace with falsehood. They did it by valuing stuff, material things, or these human-made distinctions over the divine source of sacredness. They effectively shrunk God down. They diminished his overarching concern for simple truth, replacing it with their own complex, loophole-ridden system.
It wasn't just an intellectual mistake then.
No, it was a profound spiritual failure. It revealed a really distorted, self-serving view of God's character and his clear moral standards. They were basically trying to make God's truth fit their convenience.
This has been incredibly insightful, really laying out the background and the problem Jesus was addressing. So pulling it all together, what does this mean for us now? This clearly isn't just about, not saying I swear anymore. It feels like a call for a total shift in how we relate to truth itself. A radical call to integrity in every single word. Recognizing our words matter because of who God is.
You've summarized it perfectly. That's exactly it. Jesus' view of truth is absolute. It's foundational. It flows directly from God's own nature. And because of that, it demands absolute honesty from us, his creatures. This isn't just a suggestion for being polite. It's a divine standard for all human communication woven into the fabric of reality itself. Remember, truth itself flows from a divine source. God is inherently connected to every part of creation. Piper's phrase is powerful, behind every molecule in the universe. and he is consistently, intimately concerned that his creatures speak truthfully. His own word is truth. That's the ultimate standard. Everything else is measured against it.
So truth isn't something we invent or bend.
Not at all. It's something we align ourselves with because it reflects God's character and how he's ordered his universe. To speak truth is to speak in harmony with the Creator. And think about the opposite, deceit. Where does that come from? Lying isn't just a minor fault, a slip-up. Jesus identifies it as destructively evil. He states quite plainly that lying originates with the devil. He calls Satan a murderer from the beginning and a liar and the father of lies.
That draws a very stark line.
An unmistakable line in the sand. When we choose to speak falsehood, we're not just making an error. We are, in a sense, participating in the character and actions of Satan. We're aligning ourselves with the adversary of God and humanity. Turning away from truth means aligning with Satan's character. Lying speaks out of the devil's own corrupt nature. It's acting in concert with the enemy. And remember how seriously Jesus viewed religious hypocrisy, using piety to cloak evil.
Yes, calling them sons of the devil.
Right, which tells us that truthfulness is a matter of fundamental allegiance. Whose character are we reflecting in our lives, in our words? It's a spiritual battle, and our speech is one of the main battlegrounds. So therefore, the command to just speak simply yes or no, it summarizes this divine standard in the clearest way possible. It captures the essence of what God expects. Nothing less than perfect integrity in every word we utter. This means cultivating a lifestyle of such deep integrity, such consistency, that our simple affirmation or denial carries its full weight. It's reliable.
No need for extra guarantees.
Absolutely no need for external guarantees, no special gestures, no solemn declarations, and definitely no legalistic loopholes. Your word, just your plain word, should stand as true and reliable on its own. It's a call to a level of character where your simple statement is inherently trustworthy because you are trustworthy. And as a result, the whole practice of taking oaths just becomes unnecessary. It's redundant. Because your ordinary speech is already fully trustworthy. There's no difference between a casual truth and a solemn truth in God's eyes. All truth is equally precious, and it must all be upheld. The very need for anything more than this, like oaths or endless contracts or fine print, that need comes from a world where honesty is doubted.
A fallen world.
Exactly, where deceit is common and where evil impulses promote falsehood. It's a sign of sin's corruption of human communication at its very root.
Wow. This whole deep dive really does challenge us to think about how we speak every single day. It's clearly more than just the specific words we use. It's about how we say them and what our yes and no actually mean for our lives as believers and for our witness to the world around us. It genuinely makes you stop and consider the weight of your own words.
It truly does. The practical outworking of this instruction from Jesus touches every single interaction we have. Everyone. From the most mundane, everyday conversation to the most significant decisions we make. It calls us to a radical reevaluation of our speech. So integrity becomes the absolute foundation. Our simple word is sufficient because it's backed by our character, by who we are becoming in Christ. This implies a steady sincerity, a consistency in all our communication. It eliminates any kind of hierarchy of truthfulness.
No white lies or small untruths allowed.
Not in God's economy. All falsehood is opposed to the divine standard of truth. Every word we speak, whether it's in a formal meeting, a casual chat, even in our own internal thoughts, should be reliable and line up with reality. And the purpose of the command, going back to the oaths, is to remove any possibility of pretending we can justify breaking a promise through some verbal trickery, no matter how clever we think we are.
God sees through it.
He sees right through it. He's not fooled by our devious logic or our self-serving interpretations. His gaze goes straight to the heart, to the intention behind our words, and to the character they flow from. So honoring God in our speech becomes a direct, natural result of living this way. Since God is intimately concerned with truthfulness throughout his creation, behind every molecule, our honest speech reflects his character. It honors him in every part of our lives. It acknowledges his presence everywhere and his ultimate authority over all reality. When we speak truly, we are, in a very real way, imitating our Creator, who is truth himself. And finally, there's this clear call to purity. Purity of heart and life. That strong link Jesus makes between deceit, spiritual defilement, and the devil, it makes truthfulness a matter of deep spiritual purity. It's about our allegiance to Christ, who is the truth.
So choosing truth is choosing Christ's way.
Exactly. To embrace truth in our words and actions is to walk in the light. To embrace falsehood, even in ways that seem small or justifiable to us, is to align with darkness. It's a daily decision, isn't it? To live in the way of Christ, reflecting his nature, his glorious character in every single verbal expression we make.
What a compelling deep dive.
Goodness.
Seriously, into Jesus' call for simple, radical truthfulness. It genuinely shapes how you think about every conversation, doesn't it? From just casual chit-chat to the most serious discussions, it really calls us to a new level of integrity that starts with our plain, everyday words.
It absolutely does. Just knowing that our simple yes or no should stand entirely on its own, reflecting not just our intention at the moment, but a standard set by God himself, that gives you a lot to consider. It really demands a kind of searching self-examination, doesn't it? How do we actually use language? What do our words truly represent about our hearts?
So, for you, our listener, maybe consider this as you go about your week. How might your daily communication better reflect this call to simple truthfulness, where your plain word is just a sure thing, trusted without needing extra declarations or reassurances? What would it look like for your yes to always mean yes, and your no to always mean no in every area of your life?
And maybe ask yourself, what might it look like to consciously reject any devious logic or self-serving evasions in your own life? Recognizing God's omnipresence and his constant concern for all truth, whether it seems small or big. How might a renewed reverence for truth, flowing from your core character in Christ, fundamentally change your interactions, your relationships, and your very walk with him?
We really hope this deep dive has provided some valuable insight and given you much to ponder and pray about. Join us next time for another deep dive.